What is going on, Governors? Chisgule here, and today we're going to show you how we gained 15 million points in Eve of the Crusade Stage 2 and how you can do similar things in Mighty Governor and other troop training events. There's something that people have not tapped into. It's been hiding in plain sight that is insanely powerful. We're going to talk all about it. If you like Rise of Kingdoms videos where we help you get value and points, you should like and subscribe. We're a sponsor creator with Rise of Kingdoms, and we make daily videos about this sweet game. Let's get right into the crazy point gain in this KVK Eve of the Crusade Season 3. We're sitting at a cool 16 mil points right now, and we used a fraction of the speed ups that I thought I would need to use to get there. What I'm going to do is review some of the rewards, the points for the troops you train. We're going to roll the footage of us doing the training, and we'll talk about how you get that max value with the secret toward the end for how we did this. Now, for the rewards, you may be wondering, Chisgule, why should I be training for this? The rewards are not all that impressive, and you will be right. You're competing against 7 other kingdoms, including your own, for rewards that are 3x what a typical training event might look like, or 1/3 of what a typical Mighty Governor might look like. Now, Mighty Governor doesn't award universal sculptures, but let me tell you, one trick that you can do to sweeten the deal in your kingdom is to nudge your king to make the next Mighty Governor winners be the top 15 from your kingdom. So the people who place top 15 from our kingdom are going to be awarded top 15 in the next Mighty Governor. It's right now looking like that'll be Attila, but oh my gosh, if that flips over to be one of the new commanders, Leonidas, that would be really cool. That would work out really well for me because we're looking pretty good from our kingdom. Right now, Gaius is number 1 from our kingdom. Number 2 from our kingdom would be Sandals, so he would get the number 2 Mighty Governor placement. And number 3 is currently the last Spartan, and then I would be number 4 based on the way the board is currently set up. So I would encourage you to chat with your king to move in this direction, awarding the next Mighty Governor to these people. Now, they're going to have to put up points in Mighty Governor, and the rest of the kingdom's going to have to play along, so they're going to have to get a high enough score that that's not going to be a problem. But if you've got a kingdom that gets along well, this is a pretty amazing system for motivating people to spend in this event, which is the thing that we want them to do for the kingdom, because the kingdom rewards are very good. 3% damage if you can get number 1 is really good. We started today down by, I think, like 150 million points from the number 2 placement, or from the number 1 placement. We got a 15% rune, and we just shot up like crazy. 142 has just been doing a crazy amount of training too. Props to them. Holy jeez. We started before the Eve of the Crusade in 7th place. We're right now up to 2nd place, and we still have another double Lost Kingdom rune, 4-hour training buff that's coming up. So I'm feeling pretty good about that by the time you're watching this video. That will probably be happening live as this video goes live. So the other thing we need to do before we cut to the footage and we get to the tips and then the secret, I mean, it's not so secret, right? We'll talk about it, is getting a look at how you get points. Now, if you train at T1, it's 1 point. If you train at T2, it's 2 points. If you train at T3, it's 4 points. If you train at T4, it's 8 points. And if you train at T5, it's 20 points. And if you upgrade from one tier to the next, you get the difference in points. So if you're upgrading from T3 to T4, you get 4 points. If you're upgrading from T4 to T5, you get 12 points. This is very important. We're going to talk about how you actually weaponize this in a really cool way. So let's roll over to the footage now where we're doing our actual training, and then we'll put my face over it and keep on talking. All right, we're back, and what you're watching is now some footage of me doing training for this event. We did a whole heck of a lot of it Some of it is using this trick we're talking about in this video. Some of it is not. First and foremost, some ground rules if you're doing big training. And this is common stuff, you know all this, but we need to share it because there's new viewers here, okay? First and foremost, you want to make sure you've got all the right buffs. Buffs include a really good rune, optimally 15%, but 10% is fine. You want to make sure that you are in an alliance that's got the right holy sites to get the maximum amount of troop training bonus. And you want to, if possible, have a civilization boost that helps you out. I currently don't have one. It's debatable. I actually was chatting with someone from my alliance who made a really good argument for Germany being a pretty good civilization to swap to before Lost Kingdom starts if you're going to be doing a lot of training. Civilization can help you out a little bit with some training speed boost. The big thing that kingdoms are optimizing around, and you need to be optimizing around, is the Duke Kingdom title. There is one title in the entire kingdom that gives you a 10% training speed boost. Now, this is critically important. This is critically important. We'll talk more about this title in a bit because you see, in many kingdoms, the distribution of that Duke title is a problem. In a Mighty Governor event where you have only 4 hours to train for the entire kingdom with the kingdom training buff active, and that kingdom training buff, it's activated by the king. It costs 2,500 gems. They can do it every 20 hours and gives you a 10% boost. You want to be training with that kingdom buff active and with the Duke title, and everybody else is competing for that. That typically means that you get no more than 15 minutes with the title. So you need to make the absolute most you can out of that 15-minute window. Now, there's a couple things you can do that don't require anything fancy at all. Let me talk about what those are. First and foremost, make sure that you have already lined up all of the resources that you're going to need. Make sure that you have calculated in advance what that looks like, so you don't have to tap into your resource coins while that training is happening. Those resource tokens you should have already used. We make that mistake in this video because I ended up getting the Duke at a time that I didn't think I was going to get the Duke. It was available and I wasn't expecting to train. Blah, blah, blah. Those are just excuses. Bad Chisgule. Make sure you use your tokens in advance. The next thing that I'll say is that when you are actually doing the speeding up, you'll notice I make this mistake at the start of the video and then I correct it, which is that you have all of these training speed-ups of different denominations, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 50 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, and so on, for training, and then for universals. And what I realized I needed to do to go faster was to burn through basically all of my 5-minute, 10-minute, 30-minute, 15-minute speed-ups, so that I could more quickly get to the 1 hour speed ups, which are the main course. That's the main entree, right? You want to be able to speed up your troops without having to do a lot of scrolling. I know this is like a heavy trainer problem, but like, look, let's say you've got the Duke title for 5 minutes. How do you get the most value? Well, this is one way. The other way that you get huge value, and you see me doing a lot of this in this video, is using reserves. Now, reserves are available in a number of places. They're available for purchase in the VIP shop. One of the very best places to get them is from the Call of the Ancients bundle if you are a spender, but there are also events like the Ark of Osiris that will award you these troop reserves. Now, the way it works is, depending on the amount of troops the reserve provides, you will be able to train that many more troops in a single go. So if you use one 20,000 reserve and you have a max level training building, you could train 22,000 troops. Now, this is very important. We'll talk more about this because I have historically always advocated that these are a very rare commodity. And because they're a rare commodity, the thing you do not want to do is to use those to upgrade from one tier of troop to another tier of troop. The way you get the most edge with one of these big reserves is potentially even lining it up way before the training event is going to happen. It could be even, if you're doing T5 troops, 16 days away from that training event, and you line them up, and then you only speed up the tail end by doing that 22,000 T5 troop training, like 1.5 days. It's like 1.5 days, maybe it's like a day and 16 hours. It's something like that to train new T5 troops. But if you're upgrading from T4 to T5, it's only 12 hours to upgrade the same 2,000 troops. And so what I realized is that the speed up efficiency, if you have a lot of resources to burn, and that's not a concern, the speed up efficiency for going from T4 to T5 is through the roof. For every 1 point that you get for an hour of speed up, you get half of a point per hour of speed up, roughly, training new T5 compared to training T4 to T5, the upgrade. To put that a little more clearly, for every hour of speed up, if you have like a 10% rune, you're gaining 2,000 points per hour upgrading from T4 to T5 versus about 1,100 points per hour training new T5 troops. Maybe that's the easier way to explain it. So what I realized is that over time, I had accumulated a lot of 5,000 and 10,000 mark reserves. So what I did during this event to save some of my speed ups but put huge points onto the board was to upgrade T4 to T5 using my 5,000 and 10,000 reserves while still saving some of those so that if I needed to do some precise training in the future, I could do that, I would have them. And I calculated that I had way more 20k reserves than I needed for this event anyways. So that is how we put a huge number of points on the board while still maintaining a healthy amount of speed ups in the bank for other things that may be in our not too distant future. We do plan to spend those down before we get into fighting for KVK. So we'll still be training a lot more troops in the not too distant future. And honestly, it's not so bad that I've reserved a lot of my universal speed ups because we're going to do a lot of healing. We're going to need those universals to do healing in KVK as well. So that's also a thing I feel pretty good about. So there's your big insight. Upgrade T4 to T5. Now, the bigger question is, okay, Chisgule, if I only get Duke for this short window, and you're advocating that I upgrade T4 to T5, one thing you could think about, if you wanted to put more points on the board, but don't have reserves, is you actually can train without the Duke. I know that might sound a little bit weird. For every, if you had a 15% rune, right, it's like 11 hours and 40 minutes to upgrade from T4 to T5 if you don't have a civilization buff. And it's like 12 hours and 20 minutes without the title. So for every chunk you're doing, you're actually spending 40 minutes more. But it is still extremely point efficient to upgrade from T4 to T5. The broader question then becomes actually, do you want your T4s or do you only need T5s? That's a separate conversation I think that's worth having that you could get a look at where you say, actually, I don't need T4 troops anymore. The cost to heal T4 troops is way lower. So if you're a budget player, you definitely want to have some T4 around to be using for the open field. Slam dunk, definitely want to do that. But I wanted to share these insights with you because it helped me put huge points onto the board. I did eat up my T4 infantry march. I did eat up most of my T5 archer march. I can rebuild those, and that's another one of my takeaways, which is that moving forward, I am going to be doing probably a lot more training new T4 when I'm not using one of those 20k reserves leading up to a big event. I'm just going to train lots of fresh T4, and then when one of these events comes around, I'll upgrade them from T4 to T5. And you could do it without the Duke title. That wouldn't be the most efficient use of your speed ups overall, but it would be a relatively fast way to get a lot of points on the board. So you'd have to kind of decide, do I care more about the points or the volume of speed ups that I have and the end amount of troops that I'm getting? Interesting question to ask, but I think that's enough for this one video. Let's jump back to the scoreboard. Let me show you one last thing. The last thing I wanted to show you in this event, And a part of the reason that I think our kingdom has a little bit of edge right now that I'm kind of surprised perhaps other kingdoms didn't catch on to is that if you planned it correctly, you could rock 4 troop training buffs during this 3-day window because it's a 20-hour cooldown on the kingdom buff. So we are rocking a full 16 hours of the troop training buff. If these other kingdoms don't also do the same thing, we will have gotten a whole extra 4-hour training window. And so even though we actually have, I think, fewer players in our kingdom than some of these other kingdoms do, which is a great thing. We're going to do a ton of recruiting after this KVK, which I feel very excited about. And we do have the single strongest power alliance. We're very top heavy currently. Of course, those T5s are going to spread all over the place. What I wanted to call attention to is that by having the extra buff window, not only were we still able to have 3-time windows where we have 2 sets of Lost Temple runes. That's right, 3 sets of kingdom buffs with double Lost Temple runes, and we still had 1 time with 1 set of Lost Temple runes. And we did get a 15% rune and all of that, and we had the kingdom buff rolling. Our next buff time, which, you know, again, by the time this video is live, this will already be midway in flight, is battling the Guardians at 10 UTC. Then it reset, not reset, I guess the Guardian resets at midday, 12 UTC, and then at 13 UTC, we're popping the buff. So the significance here is that we were able to eke out an extra 4 hours of training that perhaps other kingdoms are not taking advantage of. And that means that not only are our T5s doing tons of training, because let me tell you, it was a lot of T5 training in the 12 hours we've done so far. But a bunch of T4s are going to have the opportunity to train with the kingdom titles. And in addition, we were able to stagger the time zones. So any time zone you are sort of living in where a certain window would be best, well, guess what? That was available at one point or another during this 3-day window. So hopefully you have enjoyed this video. If you did, please do like and subscribe. It means a lot to me as a content creator. We're up 8 million power, and we've got more power to gain. So until next time, my friends, you have fun smashing the kingdom.